Had we had it our way, I don't think residents would have been willing to have their homes knocked down. That's not something that people say, sure, do it, unless there's a need for the homes to be redeveloped. But out of that has come a lot of resilience, a lot of community spirit, and frankly, the homes that we see today were done in partnership with residents and not to them.
Hello, I'm Toby Fox from 1.5 million new homes, the local government challenge, sponsored by Redloft. So the mission is to get 1.5 million new homes built. And the key delivery arm for that mission is local government, either as the planning authority or as a partner in a joint venture with the private sector or directly delivering new homes. So I'm visiting a different council every month to find out what works and what needs to change to enable councils to get more homes built. And today I've come to Camden. So, Councillor Nasrine Djemai, who is the Cabinet Member for New Homes and Community Investment at the London Borough of Camden, has been kind enough to spare some time to tell us a little bit about the local politics of delivering new homes in Camden. Nasrine, tell us where we are. Well, why have you brought us here in this lovely garden with these fantastic buildings behind us?
Where do I start? I mean, the homes that we have behind us are homes that were delivered by the Community Investment Programme, which I look after under my portfolio, and they are the replacement homes for homes lost to HS2. So,
okay, so that's, just to interrupt you, HS2, the big train project.
The only huge train project.
Which has meant levelling Euston, basically.
Unfortunately, yeah. And not only levelling Euston, but levelling half of a community right next to Euston, which I happen to be part of. I've grown up on this estate across the road all my life. I still live here. And my home was one of the homes that got knocked down to accommodate the High Speed 2 project.
So what was your experience of that process?
I mean, we have to go back, say, 12 years ago. Mm-hmm. I was 12 at the time. And the first time that I'd heard of this project, I was at a community meeting with my dad in a room of around 150 residents. And you had the leader at the time, Councillor Ali, who's a ward councillor here. You had Frank Dobson, the late MP of this area, and other representatives. Again, because I was so small, I didn't know the politics of it then, but I do now. And it was very emotive. It was very much, why do you want to knock down our homes? Why our homes specifically? Where are we going to live? Where are you going to move us? So from that young age, I was very much exposed to those conversations around local politics, high profile projects like HS2, and just putting into perspective where I stood in terms of being a child of council tenants, knowing that at any moment your home could be knocked down and you could be moved to anywhere. So there was always that uncertainty lingering in the background. And while I was dealing with that at home, I was also dealing with the prospect of not getting a new school because the Schools for Future scheme was about to be scrapped by the Secretary of State at the time, Michael Gove. So you could say that I've constantly been surrounded by some sort of development or construction all my life. Yeah. And that's what's kind of informed my journey into local politics and into the role that I now hold.
What did you learn from that? What was your sort of takeaway experience from that experience?
I mean, in hindsight now, knowing what I know now.
Yeah. If you knew then what you know now.
With the hindsight, I think having that conversation with residents and bringing them along for the journey, but also putting them in the driver's seat of the journey as well, and them dictating what they want to see for their area and community. Again, because this was a very unique situation. People were being forced out of their homes through no fault of their own. Had we had it our way, I don't think residents would have been willing to have their homes knocked down. That's not something that people say, sure, do it, unless there's a need for the homes to be redeveloped. But out of that has come a lot of resilience, a lot of community spirit, and frankly, the homes that we see today were done in partnership with residents and not to them. And that's something that I'm really proud of in terms of the history of the Community Investment Programme and how it's delivered homes, and how I can say with confidence that because I've lived it and breathed it, I know what the role requires in terms of being the cabinet member for it. So I think in terms of the ingredients for providing successful homes, engaging with the community that you're delivering for, and making sure that all the stakeholders are in the room to have those conversations.
But engaging is a word that we hear a lot. I mean, it's lost a lot of its value from just reuse. What does it actually mean to you? What does engagement mean to you?
It means actually talking to the people who are going to be impacted, not just consultants who go and basically say we've delivered leaflets and we've informed the communities of this. Is actually having those who are going to be impacted and affected say what their desires are and making sure that's implemented into any programme or any development that's being proposed.
So, Nasrine, there's always the danger in these things that the council is seen as a sort of patsy for the private sector. You know, as long as you're making sure that the community is happy, the private sector gets to do what it wants. What would you say to challenge that?
I mean, we're here in Euston. I would completely push back on that, if I'm honest, because first of all, the council has been met by something called the HS2 bill, which is now an act. That means it's quite limited in how much it can actually push back in terms of what HS2 are looking to do and how they look to deliver. But I think for us as a council, what we've done historically is secured assurances from them that they have to adhere to. And one of the key examples is I'm living in one of the homes that were delivered by the council because they held HS2 to account and said, if you're going to knock down our homes, you have to pay for replacement ones. And so that's just a small example in the grander scheme of things, which I'm really proud to actually say Camden have done, not only for me as a resident, but for all of us as a community. And to be able to give that back in the cabinet role that I now hold is just, there are no words to describe the pride that there is to say, I've benefited from the strong work that the council has done to essentially push back and not say we're going to be stepped all over.
Because the people in this area are really putting up with a lot of disruption, aren't they? I mean, we're cheek by jowl, residential and building site.
Yeah, I mean, you've got construction, you've got noise, you've got piling. I mean, before I was exposed to anything HS2 related, I'm not a technical expert here, but I would not have known what piling was had I not lived right next to HS2. So I have learned a lot. It's been a learning curve, but with that comes the difficulties of having to live next to one of Europe's largest construction sites.
And I don't want to put words in your mouth at all,
Please
so
don't.
challenge this if I'm wrong. But what would you say about the quality of the homes that have been delivered as a result of this scheme compared to what went before, through your own lived experience?
I mean, for me personally, when I look at that empty patch of land, I just point at it and say that's where my home used to be. And it's somewhere where I basically grew up. I moved out at 21. So that's a huge chunk of my life that's literally just been swept up. And most people can point at a building and say, I grew up there or I lived there. I can't really do that. But with the new homes, they've offered more space. For example, in my old homes, we never had balconies. And before I became a councillor, I was working as an officer to support residents impacted by HS2. And as soon as the lockdown came, one of the biggest issues that was flagged to me every time I would speak to residents over the phone is we feel trapped, it feels claustrophobic because they're having to live next to construction in overcrowded conditions most of the time. So in terms of moving from the old homes that we have to the new homes that we're delivering, it's life-changing. There's just more space and you instantly feel that that restoration of dignity, like a revived sense of purpose. You live somewhere that's comfortable. You don't have to share with your siblings anymore. You have that space to just be able to move around freely.
But there's a price to pay for that in the disruption that it takes to make it happen.
Well, I think residents understand that in terms of having to deliver new homes. There will always be a slight disruption, but the outcome of that is much greater. And we've done it before, we can do it again.
So Nasrine, tell me about the scale of ambition you have for this part of Camden and for the borough as a whole.
There is so much potential. I mean, just in front of us, we've got all of Euston and we know there is just scope to deliver so many needed homes, jobs, community facilities. For Camden as a whole, it's to ensure that everyone has a place to call home. And I know when we talk about delivering more homes, sometimes people can get a bit fixated with numbers and targets. But for me, not only as a local representative, but as a resident, it's about reminding people in local politics, in the industry, that it's not just about hitting a target, it's not just about hitting a number, but it's about knowing that behind every target that you're trying to reach is a life or a family that you've transformed in terms of the quality of life, in terms of the opportunities that they now have because they have access to decent housing, which means they can go on to live and fulfill their dreams and aspirations when they have somewhere stable to call home.
And what needs to change in the system, if you like, to enable you to deliver on that vision?
I mean, not to sound cliche, but we have heard it from our Prime Minister the moment he got elected. Change has begun. We've seen a real shift in culture and attitude towards local government, towards delivery of new homes. And we have an ambitious government that wants to deliver 1.5 million homes. I think we've got the planning reforms that are very welcome. We have that dialogue. I mean, for us in Camden, we're quite fortunate because we have some notable MPs. One happens to be the Prime Minister, another happens to be the former leader.
So you're referring to Georgia Gould as well as
yes,
Keir Starmer,
yes.
who is now in the Cabinet Office.
Yes, she's a Cabinet Minister, and such a great appointment, I have to say. So having those conversations and ensuring the financing is going where it needs to go. We've got good relationships with the Greater London Authority. We're a key partner in London councils, and it's just continuing that dialogue and making sure the funding goes where it needs to go.
So you make it sound like all the pieces are already in place and you can kind of take your foot off the pedal.
Absolutely not. There's no such thing as taking your foot off the pedal when you want to deliver such an ambitious programme. I mean, we have a target, but I think there's scope to go bigger and bolder as well. I mean, we've currently got over 3,000 homes in the delivery pipeline, and those are just ones with planning applications. So I think there is scope to do more.
Does the financial constraints of the council, along with all local government at the moment, does that not restrict your potential, your ability to deliver?
Well, I think it's, again, going back to what I said around having those active conversations with the likes of the Ministry for Housing and local government, with the Greater London Authority, but also acknowledging how much pressure not only Camden as a borough, but other local authorities are facing with their housing revenue accounts. Frankly, one thing that I feel gets quite overlooked is the fact that all local authorities have had to foot the bill for fire safety works through no fault of their own, and that's taken a huge hit to the finances of councils. So I think for us as local authorities, we really need to emphasise that we are ready and willing to deliver. We just need that acknowledgement that finances, as you've said, are difficult, and more financial support needs to be provided.
Councillor Nasrine Djemai, thank you very much indeed for your contribution to getting 1.5 million new homes built.
Thank you.
So that's it for another episode of 1.5 million new homes, the local government challenge, sponsored by Red Loft. We're going to be back in a few days with more from Camden, but in the meantime, if you could hit like and subscribe, we'd be really grateful. Look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you very much indeed for watching.